But think about what happened in the 90s when we were all having Fat and Sassy and all the excitement that was going on, particularly driven by the internet, frankly, and technology, and all those uses that we've been able to find. We got to a point where we had balanced budgets. I think the big issue is going to be what is sort of like the next thing that allows our economy to pump at such a rate where we'll be able to create as much as we do and move back to the balanced budget days that we've had previously, because otherwise it's some pretty tough medicine. There are those who believe that perhaps it can be done sort of in the clean energy space. The problem is the cost associated with getting to clean energy or getting green or doing all of those things, the cost of getting there and how much we're going to expend. Are we going to create a tax code that allows incentives so people be willing to do the kinds of things that allow them to participate in this green revolution that we all want to be a part of? Those are the kinds of issues I think that really, and that's like I said, it depends upon what kind of power that train is using. It may be clean coal technology.
So the answer is?
I ask you, how long is the track?
Oh. You should, the economists ask those sort of questions. Mate, this is a very bipartisan
the economist, what's the economist versus the accountant, what's 2 plus 2? Yeah, what do you want it to be?
This is a very bipartisan group here. So we've got 3 questions from different parts of the spectrum. And you can answer yes, no to each of these questions, right? Don't feel you have to qualify it. The first one comes from the Republican National Committee. And its question to you is there any specific new legislation of Obama's government that gives benefit to developers?
Is there any, what was the last part? You don't have to read the preamble.
Gives benefit to developers, because this is a development.
Anything from the Obama?
Yeah.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Yes, no, it would have been fine. Second one.
But then I'm not responsible for his stuff.
Second one's from the Democratic National Committee, and they say, isn't the creation of the infrastructure bank that co-invests in infrastructure projects a great piece of public policy? Yeah, yes, no is okay.
Dare I say maybe?
Oh, you're the expert. And do you want the third one?
Yes.
This one's a write-in. It looks like it's in Sarah Palin's handwriting. She says...
It's Palin.
Palin?
Palin.
Palin. Field dresser moose.
You betcha.
Don't you love how the Tea Party movement has changed the Republican Party leadership and the real estate market?
Yes.
Okay, good. Now, we get to the tough questions now, right? Okay. Now, this one was, this is a very broad question. So these people had thought about this long and hard. 2 questions. What will be the biggest upside to the 2010 elections? And 2, what will be the biggest downside to the 2010 elections? Now, what I should also tell you is there's a stack of other questions here that are like this. You've already sort of covered the tax cuts, you've covered the healthcare repeal, you've covered the national debt limit, the congressional hearings, but the things they want you to talk about are Fannie and Freddie's future, mortgage interest rate deductions, whether they're going to stay for housing, and social security reform.
Let me start with, well, first of all, this is only a window of 2 years where I'm making these prognostications, because all bets are off in 2012 and going forward. In terms of, I do not believe that Congress is going to deal with Social Security reform, either increasing the age or changing the retirement age, or dealing with thresholds, or dealing with ages when one can sort of start getting into the pie. I don't believe that that's going to happen. Likewise, I already told you that I thought the commission recommendations were going to be dead on arrival in Congress, and I don't see mortgage interest rate deductions being taken away during the next 2 years. I don't see comprehensive tax reform taking place over the next 2 years. And failing having an opportunity to do something comprehensive. This is not a good time to do comprehensive tax reform. When we did tax reform in 1986, you kind of like, the president's kind of got to get reelected, Congress has got to be of the right mind. Then we had like 190 Republicans in the House. About 20 of them were what I would describe as moderate Republicans, so they're kind of from the northeast. But we had a lot of blue dog Democrats, 70 or 80 or so. So that allowed us to hobble together in a big, huge middle amongst the Senate, which we ran at the time, Republicans ran at the time. And that allowed us to hobble together the tax reform that we did in 1986. That environment is not here yet. I don't think it can be duplicated until the president, if the president gets reelected, and depending upon who's controlling Congress at that point in time, then there is a window to do something in tax reform. The question is, I don't know that he wants to do anything in tax reform, so you're going to have to balance those things, I think, as you look forward. I took care of mortgage, Social Security. What was the other one?
Fannie and Freddie.
Fannie and Freddie.
That really was the big one.
Yeah, I know. Well, despite the fact that I think they're spiraling down rapidly, and despite the fact that I'm of the view that they could have a significant second shock wave to the real estate market and ultimately the economy, and see, I'm still not convinced maybe I'm too pessimistic, that there's some commercial unraveling that needs to take place too, but we just haven't seen it yet. That said, I don't know whether after the president's last experience, well, first of all, George Bush started the bailouts, and then the president continued by doing the stimulus and some other stuff. I'm not confident there is a mood in Washington to even bail out Freddie and Fannie. And when you add to that these people who are now in Congress who are saying, at least on one side, that my deal is to stop this government involvement in stuff that they don't need to be worried about, I think it makes it difficult for Congress to get into the bailout business, even though they created the Fannie-Freddie thing, and they also failed to make changes when they saw this coming. So the blame kind of goes around. I wish I could have a better answer than that for you folks because of the industries in which you are currently making your livelihood, but I just don't see it. I mean, I don't see the willpower there to do it, particularly on the heels of what happened over the last couple of years.
I want to close this session by getting your focus back on Texas, right? And this crowd's pretty keen.
I love Texas.
Right? Can I hear that again?
I love Texas.
You love Texas.
It's my home.
Right, okay. So in the work you'll be doing in Washington, you'll be putting in a good word for Texas, will you?
Yes.
Okay. There is a perception in Texas that we do not receive our fair share of federal support. That means dollars, tax dollars. Do you feel this perception has merit? The correct answer is yes.
Yes.
If yes, how do you get more dollars in Texas?
Remember, we don't like earmarks anymore, so can't do it by earmarks. It's basically a situation of reimbursement rates. It's based on population, and hopefully, and then the formulas that are associated with that. Hopefully, with the increase, our redistricting, it appears as though we're going to have 4 new congressional districts in Texas. And that's because we're going to take some from New York and some from Illinois and Florida and other places, which means Texas is a great place to live, which you all know. So, when those numbers start increasing, then, the dollars should flow a little bit more freely. But the flip side of that is that you got more people you got to cover with those limited dollars. And so I'm more concerned, frankly, about the state's reaction and other states' reactions, and I think this is going to be very, very important in the coming couple of years to the implementation of the healthcare reform package, because that's where it's going to really, really hit some states. Even though I'm a lawyer and never claimed to be a constitutional lawyer, I'm not sure any of these lawsuits have any merit that are winding their way through the federal courts now in terms of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. But I do believe when the rubber starts hitting the road, which occurs about 2014, that is going to be very, very difficult for some states to handle those burdens, which is why you're going to see this huge debate on health care reform again, why I think it's going to be the centerpiece, if not a centerpiece in the 2012 elections, is because of this big bubble that's occurred out there in 2014. And the question is, what are you going to do between now and then? Those are the kinds of bigger issues in terms of getting dollars back to Texas, because that's kind of taking it away, because it's putting the responsibility on the states to do stuff that the federal government is mandating.
Well, Thank you very much, Fred. I mean, there's one other question that obviously came from a student, and that was, how do we convince the legislature not to cut the budget at Texas A&M?
Lots of luck. Thanks, guys.